W. Vince Berry, hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT, handing out smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here, no safe space. Now listen in, time to hear from some of the greats.
On the chessboard, get up and tell you where to go. And you've just had some kind of mushroom, and your mind is moving on. Go and stand, I think you'll know. When you're sick and the fortune have fallen from the head, and white lies talking backwards, and the red queen God with her head.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the War Report podcast, brought to you by TagMeADate.Crew. Of course, playing a little White Rabbit, which it was just brought to my attention today that the way they spell White Rabbit, if you move, play around with the letters, it spells Bray Wyatt.
Oh.
Rumor is you better be watching Extreme Rules this Saturday night, because I have a really, and I had this feeling already, but I have a feeling that Extreme Rules not only is going to be a good show, and we'll get into that in our predictions, but is Bray Wyatt going to return? And Vince, I was saying, it was brought to my attention today, the way they spell White Rabbit.
Yeah.
If you move the letters around, it spells Bray Wyatt.
It's an anagram? Really?
So I think between that, the lantern in the background of the Extreme Rules picture, somebody else said there was another QR code that if you dove into it and really broke it down, the coordinates led to where Extreme Rules is going to be. So,
right. Every
who
week
the fuck
they've
knows?
been doing coordinates that lead to the building.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
And like last week, it was all about 923. On 923 at 923, it goes to commercial. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm losing my shit. But then I got video of what happened at 923 during the commercial break. You had White Rabbit. Everybody's with their phones up chanting, "We want Bray," the whole fucking thing. So, I mean,
if it's not Bray, dude, can you imagine?
If it is not Bray, Triple H is in trouble. It's
like
got to
Joe
be
Gacy
Bray
or somebody.
Even,
can you fucking imagine?
I feel like even at this point, if the original plan was not for it to be Bray, it better have become about Bray. I'm also hearing there's a new writer on the team, and he's a horror writer.
And he's
from
he used to work for Marvel as well.
So why is anyone to believe that we're bringing in a horror writer and Bray is not coming? So it's got to be Bray. Hey, guys, I have a confession to make. I'm a bit under the weather and my ears are clogged, so please just bear with me. Tara, no problem. We hope you feel better.
Yeah, that shit's going around, man.
It is going around like fucking wildfire. But, yeah, man, so I'm very hopeful. Eric, go ahead.
I was going to say unrelated, but that's an example of a band that was better on drugs.
I don't even know who the fuck they are, to be quite honest with you. That wasn't my thing.
Well, because there was Jefferson Airplane and then Jefferson Starship, but they're two different bands with the same lead singer or something.
You go from a cool song like White Rabbit to "We Built This City." Come on, that's like
yes.
drugs is the difference. But
It is very weird.
Speaking of Bray Wyatt, I wrote up a tentative Survivor Series card. But if Bray Wyatt comes out at Extreme Rules, that completely fucks up my my card. But that's completely okay with me. So whenever you're ready, if you guys don't mind, I want to read off my little Survivor Series card at some point today.
Oh wow. Yeah, the pick'ems will be weird, like for sure. Like, go.
Hey Vince, it's asking me to add you to the stream again.
Yeah, hold on.
Do you want me to do that? I guess so.
There we go. I had to wait for my computer's acting up.
I got you. No worries. Ryan, what's going on, brother?
Not much. How are we doing?
Oh, there we go.
We're doing. So I'm very hopeful. Like I said, I really, it's not a matter to me at this point if it is or isn't. I'm convinced 100,000% that it is. It's just a matter of when, and I do hope it's this Saturday because, like I said last week to you, Vince, he's the hottest free agent in the market.
I think so. The other of not debuting him on Extreme Rules is here's kind of my issue. Bobby Lashley challenged Seth Rollins to an Intercontinental Championship match for the Monday after a pay-per-view. I know Seth already has a match at the pay-per-view, but like maybe we could defend the US title on a pay-per-view. I don't know. So I would rather Bray debut on a pay-per-view to still keep the mystique and the intrigue and the mystery of pay-per-views the way it was back in the day, instead of treating pay-per-view as just like a third episode of Raw or whatever for the week. You know what I mean?
I agree with you, but I feel like if it doesn't happen at Extreme Rules,
it'll be Monday.
Then no, but see, well, so all right, I have two issues because personally, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. It's just my thought process is if it doesn't happen at Extreme Rules, then the next time it makes sense to me is at the Royal Rumble. You don't do it at Crown Jewel.
No.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So your next opportunity then is going to be, well, you'll have Survivor Series first, but I feel like Survivor Series wouldn't necessarily be bad, especially if he doesn't come alone, and then you can kind of incorporate that into a faction kind of thing. But if not, how much better would it be if, like, you know, all of a sudden it's like number 28 and you hear the Fiend's music come out? Like, you know, that would be like roof fly off, like Edge coming back. You know what I mean? Right, in a way. Absolutely. But here's my other problem. If you do wait till the Rumble, does this whole QR code white rabbit thing start to get overplayed? Like, it's very cool right now because it's very different. We've never seen really anything like this, at least to this extent, and how creative they're being with it. So I'm all for it. But I feel like eventually it's going to start to play itself out. I do also feel, and I wanted to get the panel's opinion and see if I'm by myself on this one, but I'm really starting to feel like a lot of attention is being put on Alexa Bliss, and there's subtle things that are starting to happen that's kind of hinting at the fact that evil Alexa is possibly making a comeback to rejoin the Fiend. Thoughts on that? Because I'm getting that feeling, even just facial expressions, the attitude. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it worked first time. There's no reason to not go back to it. They didn't.
Fucking A, it worked. I agree.
They might have to finesse around Alexa turning on Bray, but that's easy enough.
Yeah, that's the well. Actually, they're bringing it up in the these images and QR codes and stuff. They're talking about Delilah cutting the hair of Samson. For those of you who didn't go to Catholic school or Hebrew school, Samson was a leader, and his power came from a devotion to God in which he wouldn't cut his hair. So in exchange for never cutting his hair, he had great power and was a great leader. And then he fucked up and he told Delilah his secret, and then she cut his hair and fucking, locked him in the prison and everything. Anyway, so that's the story of that. And so the Delilah Samson images have been popping up, and then quotes from Dante Alighieri's the Divine Inferno, whatever it is, Dante's Inferno. You know, he wrote all the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going down a weird, a weird spooky path like that, and some of this stuff has actually been popping up during Alexa's segments, kind of looping it all back in.
And not only that, but if you notice,
Like
I don't know if it happened on the most recent match with Alexa, maybe the match before, but the lights flickered. Like there have been some subtle things happening during her matches.
This week they had for like just a flicker, the screen, not the lights in the arena, but the actual image on the screen changed from the video feed to a pink or purple, like almost like, if you have like something unplugged and you plug it back in on your back of your TV, it just flashed purple or pink really quick and then cut back. But it was like in the middle of her entrance or in the middle of her match or something. So I feel like there's more of that stuff. Maybe it'll be one interference and then in another match or another promo, like it'll crackle and kind of interfere. And then the way it comes out is she's out there and he takes over the video feed and like he finally has enough power to take over the entire video feed a couple weeks from now or whatever.
See, but now, like, if they do decide to turn Alexa, they have a real great opportunity to be creative right now. Like it could be almost like a Hulk thing in a way. Bear with me for a minute. But what I mean by that is, like, we saw her get so angry backstage after the attack on Asuka, and they did that close up, and she was like, whatever, I'm coming to get you kind of thing. But the anger and all that, like, if she had just gotten so angry and screamed and her eyes closed and all of a sudden they opened and they were yellow again, just something as simple as that is all you need. And then like week after week, something else starts to happen, like, like different face paint or, like little subtle things. And then eventually like the Fiend comes out and she just goes full blown Harley Quinn kind of deal, back to the way she was. I mean, there's just some really cool things they can do. Yeah. You can't just like, this is where it's a good thing Vince isn't here, because this is not something where the people are going to forget and the people aren't going to remember. This is very fresh still. People still remember. Yeah. So you can't just pretend like she's Alexa Bliss and next Monday all of a sudden she's coming out and she's, fucking crazy bitch. You know what I mean?
No,
so
I like what you're saying. I think you're right, Steve. Like, I think something that would be cool would be as if Alexa almost started like short circuiting.
You're right.
Where she like, oh man, I just triggered my Amazon device. Anyway, I think if she like kind of starts to lose it, and like 1 week she comes out and she's dressed like she was in NXT with her NXT music, and then 1 week she comes out and she's like trying to be friends with Nikki Ash, and like going through like just kind of having like memory loss or whatever, and like at one point she switches between all these characters and like
going through all her characters.
Right. And then like backstage they see her and she's like, Alexa, what are you doing? And she's like convulsing and whatever. And she like walks into a room and closes the door, and like smoke and red lights come out from under the door. And then she walks out and she's dressed in the costume.
An evolution of her characters.
Kind of do a Paranormal Activity. She like, when the girl
right at the end. Ah!
What was the first one?
This might really be a very
she's
good.
Just kind of sleepwalking.
Oh,
this might goes in the door slams itself.
The security camera shows her for hours just standing in one spot until she like looks up and blah.
If this is all seriously going to happen, I am very excited that there's a horror movie writer now on the team, because I think some of the shit creatively he's going to come up with and bring to the table is going to be shit we've never seen in pro wrestling. So we'll have to see.
Demographic for it.
Of course, people love horror. And listen, not for nothing, is October not like the best time for fucking Bray Wyatt to come back? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Now, here's the thing. We're talking about all this spooky stuff, and we're talking about the White Rabbit and this, that, and the other, and the Fiend and the dark stuff. And does the Firefly Funhouse come back? Does the Happy-Go-Lucky,
I hope so. I think that was all part of, like, I think the whole Mr. Rogers, Bray Wyatt, and this worked hand in hand, and
I agree.
I loved everything about it. I think you keep everything the same it was,
But does Bray want to keep it the same? Does Bray want to change the? You know what I mean? Because he's always talking about evolving the character. So
well, I think listen, part of what we heard was the reason why he was released or he left or whatever was that he wanted too much control. But I think when he's working with Triple H is going to give him more leeway than he had. And I think they're going to be able to come up with some great ideas and what's the word I'm looking for? Some compromises. And I think even if it changes a little bit, I don't think it has to. Don't fix what wasn't broken.
Yeah.
That's just my feeling. But listen, that doesn't mean that they don't make some changes that are awesome. You know what I mean? What if they make Fiend even darker? If that's even fucking possible. Well, like there are things they can do, so we'll see.
Because, go ahead, Eric.
He's the type of guy, from what we know creatively, that can take anything and build something around it. Like he's a genius when it comes to this shit.
You are so right. This was Husky fucking Harris, and he made himself. I mean, it's just he's such a great fucking talent, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
But that's the thing. He didn't give himself Husky Harris. That was the old NXT name generator. You know what I mean? When they were like, "Oh,
no, I'm not saying that was him. I'm just saying like that he started as Husky fucking Harris, and we all sat there and said this guy's never going to be anything, and now we're chomping at the bit for him to make his return.
If he has a lot of creative control, it reminds me of the way like Impact gave Matt Hardy a lot of control for his character.
Yeah.
He's. You can see a lot of, especially because they worked together at that one point. I'm sure Matt helped. Not that he needed the help, but I'm sure Matt, as a guy who's been very, I need to control my character in a specific way for so long, he probably passed on a lot of knowledge to Bray. What I'm thinking of is online there was speculation that wherever Bray was going to turn up, there was this, what do they call it, Wyndham 6, and it kind of looked more technological, like almost like an evil Android.
He does have a copyright. He does have a copyright to that now too. So, listen, that could be maybe like his next crew is going to be 6.
I would think it could be 6 personalities.
Well, look, I mean, Rowan, Braun is there. He could come back with Rowan and create, and add another person.
Yeah, but then who would technically be the other 3? Well, really 2, because you have Alexa Bliss, and then the rumors were you could put Karrion Kross and Scarlett in there, and then you put who was the other one? Dexter Lumis.
You could do that. The other
Dexter Lumis would be a good fit.
He would be, and then so there were rumors floating around because people, when they dig into these web pages and stuff. Part of the QR code a couple weeks ago was Malachi Black's like entrance music or something, but obviously that's a red herring. Hi, doggy.
Well, and plus Malachi pretty much said in a video that he's staying.
But then this week, which I think is also a red herring, they in the website's code it said something about Joe Gacy, and then Joe Gacy posted something cryptic on Twitter. Which
I'd rather not him.
I would rather not either. I think that's terrible. But because he's doing that thing in NXT where he's like the dark guy, the schism, whatever it is, and then he's got the 2 druids or whatever, like maybe they tie it in.
Who used to be the grizzled young veterans, a fine team that didn't.
A great team.
Whatever.
Yeah. The other speculation.
Even if you're down on somebody, if they give him to Bray, I think you'll start to learn to like them.
Well, yeah, if they
you know what I mean?
To where they were, because the Grizzly Young Vets were good as they were. That was then they just made them these things.
But hear what I'm saying though too. Like, I don't take this the wrong way. I'm not going to be upset about it, but I'm not looking for the cult leader Bray Wyatt to come back.
I was just going to ask you that. Would it be?
I'm looking for Mr. Rogers fucking Fiend coming back. That's what I'm looking for. Not that I would be upset because some of the greatest promos ever was when he was the leader of the Wyatt family.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't be angry, but that's not what I'm looking for.
But I get it. Having the group around him kind of takes the focus is on the group. Right. He doesn't need it.
You're the Fiend. You don't need anything. All you need is your woman, and you got Alexa Bliss. That's all I would ever need.
He's got to set her straight, though. I think that's probably, there has to be something
They had great chemistry
Yeah.
together.
But just
And
even
Alexa Bliss has even said she loved working with him.
Yeah, and she can, you know, we've seen she can pull off whether it's the dark thing or the good Mr. Rogers type of thing.
People
when
shit
she's
on
the
her,
show.
Eric. People shit on her, but I thought she did a great fucking job with it. I really do. But people shit all over it. People thought it sucked.
Her by herself was a little rough, though.
Yeah, I don't
See,
like the
I
Lily
don't
thing.
think
I don't
so.
like her by herself. I liked her and the feet. Like, I don't know.
I didn't mind it. She did a great Harley Quinn.
What about that licorice tongue thing that she did? You know, like.
Oh man,
It was
when
a
she
little
was
corny.
covered in
Her tongue
black
came
like
out, and it was,
oil.
like, really, like,
Yeah.
Gene Simmons, you know.
Jeez. That's what they could bring the Kiss demon back, and Gene could play them out to the ring to God of Thunder. For those of you who are too young to remember, that shit actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
And originally it was going to be Bryan Adams, but then he was like, he
Bryan Adams was in the costume
once,
for
and
one
then he was like,
appearance.
screw that, I'm not doing
And then they
this.
passed it off to Dale Torborg, who most recently was working for the Chicago White Sox as an athletic trainer. Anyway.
The more you know.
Right? Now, that's a little fact for you baseball fans out there. Dale Torborg, who I think might still be working. I don't know if he works for him anymore, but he was with the organization for a very long time. And he would bring guys into TNA, MLB guys. But yeah, it's interesting speculation, especially hearing the new news about Marvel guy. I forget his name. I apologize, but he was with Marvel. He's done horror movies. The term that they're using is something of like director of creative continuity or like long-term continuity or something, which thank fucking God, because
Right.
that's the thing.
That brings me in right there.
And that's the thing that WWE hasn't really been known for the last few years, which really hurts, is continuity. Even in the last year before Vince left, all the bouncing around that they did with Judgment Day. We remember.
Yeah.
We all were not dumb. This happened months ago, and now it's just like kind of a mess.
They're even doing continuity from NXT, into the main roster.
Yes.
Like I saw, okay, I'm watching a match. I think it was Dakota Kai against what's her name? Raquel, right?
Okay.
I'm watching that, and I'm like, I wonder if they're gonna even acknowledge that they had a past. And then in commentary, they did. I'm like, oh, thank God. You know?
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff they wouldn't. They'd be like, I hated when somebody debuted on the main roster and they'd pretend like the person didn't exist until the day they walked through the curtain. Like, who is this new person?
They did it last week when fucking Candice LeRae made her debut, and she's walking in the back, and Bailey goes, let me tell you how things work since you're new around here. It's like, hello. Like, yeah, she may be new to Raw or SmackDown, whichever fucking show it was, but everybody knows Candice LeRae. She was in NXT forever.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? So
including Bailey,
they still do that
partners.
shit.
Right, yeah, and Candice wrestled everybody in that group anyway, so they should know. Maybe that was just a thing for Bailey, the heel character, to kind of do.
Yeah, kind of a jerk thing to do.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I am very happy. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I'm very happy with what they're doing with Liv Morgan right now. And the build up to this match with Rousey. I still think there's no way in hell Rousey should lose again. But
unless there's interference or something.
Yeah.
Right, but I like the brawling. I like the what's going on, the build for the last few weeks. I think it's being done. It's making Liv look stronger than she's ever looked. Like flying off the top rope and going through the table and the kendo stick and the chair and the bat and the whole, and then that brawl this past week with Ronda and outside the ring. Like, I just I like the way they're building to it, but I do, and we'll talk about this when we talk about our predictions. But I still think that should be a wrap.
It's much better than her looking like she's gonna cry every day.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like she's starting to look like a badass now.
Yeah.
So the other thing I think I liked was I saw a picture, and I know what happened during a match, but like I saw it shared on Facebook. I was like, oh yeah, this happened recently where Liv was like, Ronda like threw Liv over the middle rope and then like did Liv's pose while choking her through the ropes, like bowing through the ropes and choking her and shit. I was like, oh, Ronda's actually starting to show a little personality here instead of just like the friggin' poker. Like they had her do her mean MMA face. And it's like, this is not MMA. You need to emote so people know what you're feeling. Like the reason you go into that MMA with a face like that is so you have a poker face and your opponent doesn't see that you're scared or motivated or whatever. Your poker face. Like going to wrestling, you gotta turn that up. And now I think she's finally kind of 2-3 years in. She's gotten to that point where she's a little more comfortable now and kind of is
right. I agree. So listen, we're already pretty much halfway through the show. And before we get more into Extreme Rules, predictions, things like that, we break down the card. Which, by the way, Ryan, if you want, start queuing that up so we have that ready.
Give me 2 seconds.
Thank you, sir. But there are two things that I do want to cover. So I want to get them out of the way now before we get back into WWE. The first thing, there's been a lot of flack about Saraya's first promo back in a ring in AEW and her debut on Dynamite. I wanted to get your guys' opinions and thoughts on this one because for me, I watched it. I thought the response was great. She took it in. I didn't think the promo was a bad one. I think she cut a very real promo. The emotions took over. She even says in the promo, God, guys, you're making me nervous. I haven't done this in a while, which there's nothing wrong with saying that because you're getting the crowd's love and affection back from it.
right.
I don't know. For me, I thought everything really worked. She took a little small dig at WWE, but who the fuck cares? It's a small little dig. Like, let's not be pussies about it. But I don't know.
Dude, WWE fans online, anytime anybody in AEW
they
whispers
suck.
WWE. Oh my God, you can stop talking about WWE. Oh, shut up, nerd. Anyway.
Seriously, like what the fuck? Like everybody's like got an opinion. It's what did she say that was so bad about this I thought it was a great, solid promo.
And Tara liked it. Yeah.
I'm curious because like I don't understand any negativity towards what her promo was. It was funny. It was great.
Well,
Saraya,
I will. First of all, right, you have to be excited at the fact that Saraya's in a ring. Yep. She's in AEW, which nobody ever thought they were going to see if we rewind, 4 or 5 years ago. So, and there's potential that she's actually going to get in the ring. I will say one thing I didn't like, but it had nothing to do with Saraya's actual promo. For me, when she called out the ladies in the back, you had a handful of the face and then Team Britt Baker's, crew.
Yeah.
I wanted to see every fucking woman in the AEW roster come out.
Absolutely.
Like, you're going to start a revolution and you're going to fucking do this whole big thing that you get every fucking woman out there around the ring, and that's how you do it. So that was the only disappointing thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that's the direction they're going. And here's the other thing that people have to, online you see constant complaining about Tony Khan's handling of the women's division. And then whenever he puts like Rosa on TV, they go, oh, well, Rosa's promo sucked. And I didn't like that match between Britt Baker and whoever. Or, Saraya, this, it's like anytime he tries to improve the division, they just criticize what he's doing anyway. And what you have to realize is it's a new company that didn't exist until 3 years ago. We literally thought there was going to be a first of all, if you look back 3 or 4 years, we thought that Vince McMahon was never going to retire from WWE. Triple H and Stephanie were never going to be put in charge. And we thought that WWE was going to hold a monopoly on international televised wrestling for the rest of our foreseeable lifetimes. That's just the way it was. And then AEW came in and changed things. But they're still a new company, especially with a women's division where women's wrestling, there is a lower number of women wrestling, which means you have a lower pool to choose from, which means that top 5% that you want on TV is harder to find, and they might already be with WWE, and then you kind of have to go from there. But also when you're building a division up, you have to go through the growing pains. Like Private Party 3 years ago, look at those guys. The Acclaimed a couple years ago, look at those guys, and now they're pros. So if you want to like the AEW women's division, you should understand that there are going to be growing pains and to give them a fucking chance. And if
Look what
all you
they've
want to
done
do
with
is bitch
Serena.
about it, then bitch about it. But like,
how long did it take for the WWE to have a solid wrestling women's division? I mean, let's be honest.
literally from 1953 all the way until 2015. So fucking count that.
Correct. So what the fuck are we talking about? You're right.
Exactly.
Give them a fucking chance. You know what I mean?
And it's not going to take 50 years. I'll tell you that. It's not going to take 50. It might take 5, but it's not going to take 50.
Like, look, Britt Baker came from hardly anybody knowing who she is to a
And she
a
stunk.
megastar,
She
right?
stunk.
Yeah, and Serena Deeb, completely reinvented herself, and she's awesome. And this is big.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, I understand the guy has put a lot of pressure on himself and he hasn't delegated the work that he should have delegated. So now that Tony Khan has people to spread the work out to, he can do that. The women's division just needs help in terms of like focusing on different people. I know Britt is a big star, but she's always in the feud, like the main feud for the women, and just throw some other people in there just to switch it up. Have
Bro,
Jamie
to be
turn
honest,
on
right
Britt,
now, the only real good thing about their women's division that they're doing right is the whole Jade deal.
Jade's
Treating
great.
her like making her like the new Goldberg and
Yeah, and
undefeated
she
and this
couldn't
and that.
wrestle.
They're right. She sucked
Yeah.
too, and look at her now. She's great. I mean, I shouldn't say she's come a
good,
very
she's
long
getting-
way.
and she's improving. And so
Right.
as long as you see continuous
she's
improvement.
a much lighter green.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's a lighter shade of green now. She used to be like forest green. Now she's like lime green.
They have work to do, but I think with Soraya there, if they're really
Yeah.
going to let her have some influence and this and that, listen, one person's not going to be able to change it all, but she's a damn good addition to the women's division there, and just give it a chance, dude. At the end of the day, this is Paige, and this is also somebody that we never thought we'd see back in a wrestling ring. And who knows? I mean, I don't know about anybody else, Paige. I think that would be a fucking great match.
That's
I mean,
money.
there's that money.
Easy money.
So, I think you just got to give it a chance. Now,
Well, if you
go ahead.
go back, think about this, okay? When Vince like officially stepped out of power and Triple H got the book and all that stuff, if that had happened like 6 months to a year prior, and before Paige was gone, do you think Paige would have stayed with WWE?
There's a lot of people you could ask that about because we
Would
don't.
WWE clear though?
Yeah.
That's
I
the other
think
thing. Is
I
like,
think the answer is yes. I think that from everything I heard is that WWE did come back and make her an offer to come back, but she had already signed with AEW. So I think if they had come to the table prior to her signing with AEW, I think absolutely. If it was a sweet enough deal,
if WWE told her she might be able to wrestle, she would do it.
I'm talking even prior to her being released from WWE.
No, her thing was always contingent on wanting to wrestle again when medical technology got there.
And she didn't want to give up her social media stuff. She didn't want to give up her Twitch and all that other shit. She was making a shit ton of money off of that.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year off of Twitch and OnlyFans.
Yeah.
By the way, not that I don't subscribe to this one, but I have seen I guess Noelle Foley's newest the October photos for Noelle Foley's OnlyFans is going to be sexy Danhausen, in which Noelle Foley paints her face and dresses like Danhausen. So I
saw a picture of her dressed as Danhausen.
Yeah, and we're all going to chip in and we're going to buy these photos for Eric because of how much he loves Danhausen.
Hey, look, if it's Noelle Foley, I'm all in.
That's fucking funny. Hey, so listen, one other thing I did want to bring up, and then we should shift back to Extreme Rules before we run out of time. But we would be a horrible wrestling podcast if we did not mention Antonio Inoki and the passing of a legend. Just happened the other night, and he was very influential. He's one of the founding fathers of New Japan. He was actually an unofficial WWF champion, which was never acknowledged, and I don't really understand why. Do you know the reason why it wasn't acknowledged?
Did he take it from Hogan or from Bruno?
I don't remember. To be honest,
It might have been from Hogan because what they didn't
Backlund.
like breaking up, or it could have been
from
Backlund. It was Backlund. That's what they don't like breaking up those reigns. Backlund was champ for 7 years or whatever it was. You know what I mean? They didn't want it to be like
look, the way
broken
they
up.
got the belt from Bruno to Pedro, they had Ivan Koloff, and the way they got it back to Bruno was Stan Stasiak. So I don't see why they couldn't have given like Antonio that spot too.
That's true. Like he could have just
Iron Sheik too. He was like the bridge between Backlund and Hogan.
Iron Sheik was like a 3-day bridge between the guy. Like they did it on Boxing Day. Like the Sheik Backlund match happened on December 26th, and then I think Hogan's match was on like in January 3rd or January 6th of the next year. So like a week later, and they fucking just went with Hulkamania. But yeah, I think they
which wound up being the right decision.
Oh, 100%.
Obviously,
they were never going with Sheiky as long-term champ. Sheik was just there because Backlund literally, this is the weirdest thing. Vince McMahon goes, hey, thank you for your service. You've been a big babyface for 7 years. I want you to dye your hair black and turn heel and put over Hulk Hogan. And he's like, go fuck yourself. So instead they tag teamed together, and then Sheik beat Backlund. Backlund gave Hogan the okay to avenge his loss, blah, 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 and the rest is history. But I think the long story short with Inoki, they couldn't have Inoki lose in Japan. They wanted, and they had respect for Inoki. They wanted him to win, especially Backlund. So Backlund puts him over in Japan, but WWF is not going to recognize it because they want that. They want it to look like their champion held the title for 7 years with no interruptions.
Did it with the NWA with Flair losing it to random guys too.
In Puerto Rico, it happened all the time. He'd lose the title because they would fuck the whole crowd would be there ready to kill him.
The Carlos Colon one.
The Carlos Colon one's the best. The crowd is sitting there like there are guys with knives and chains and torches and pitchforks and all just waiting. He's like, hey, Carlos. And he like pulls Carlos over the top of him and like passes out. He's like, no, I'm done. But Antonio Inoki, man. Yeah, so it was his style of wrestling, and I know there was kind of controversy where he in the late 90s through the mid 2000s and 2010s really liked strong style, the focus on like more MMA style matches, harder striking, harder grapples. One of the first recorded mixed martial arts matches legit was against Muhammad Ali, Antonio Inoki, Muhammad Ali in the 1970s. Muhammad Ali went.
I was going to say same card that Andre fought Chuck Wexner.
Yeah,
but boxing match or whatever.
Ali thought it was going to be a wrestling match, like a worked wrestling match until the day of, and they had to go back and they had to do all these different. Antonio Inoki could only kick.
What eventually became like the whole Mr. T. Piper boxing.
Yeah, but they had to, because Inoki wanted to do a legit sparring thing. He's like, no, I know judo, I can strike. Like you can box, you can kickbox, whatever. And Ali trained with Judo Gene LaBelle, so it's not like he was a slouch. But Ali had all these big title fights coming up. So they changed the rules where Inoki could only kick if he had a hand on the ground. So he had to like get real low, and you see these pictures of like him kicking. And actually, rumor has it, kicked Ali so much he developed blood clots in his legs and reduced Ali's boxing speed. Like his footwork was never as fast as it was after his fight with Inoki, even though it was a draw and they barely touched each other. Inoki stayed away and had such long legs. He whap, kick, and caused a lot of damage.
And another infamous moment in the career of Antonio Inoki was, the term receipt when it comes to like fighting and shit. There was this guy, big fat dude named the Great Antonio.
The Great Antonio, yeah.
Has a match with Inoki, is not selling anything, and is starting to, be a little stiff with his shit. So then Inoki comes back and is like, I'm not taking this shit anymore, and beats the shit out of him.
Open hand palm strikes to the face of this big guy, and he wears him down and then boots him. Like he starts kicking him in the face.
The guy was being completely disrespectful to
the
sport of wrestling.
Doc Gallows was wrestling Sylvester Terkay in New Japan. The match was so bad, Inoki ran from the back, threw a chair into the ring, and demanded that the referee stop the match. He's like, no contest. This match sucks. Yeah, Inoki's a founder of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think he broke away from AJPW when Baba's wife took over or something like that. I don't know. There was a whole bunch of drama back in the 80s about it, and there's a good book by Chris Charlton that'll tell you about it. But he founded New Japan, the IWGP, the International Wrestling Grand Prix, which started off as a once-a-year tournament. The first IWGP winner was Hulk Hogan. Even though he's not recognized as an IWGP champion because it was just winning a tournament. Vader was. So then the IWGP ended up becoming their world title. Yeah, Stan Hansen was. Bob Sapp. A lot of Americans came in and had some good success over there. But Inoki,
extremely notable Japanese,
he was. I mean, he was a politician. He was a TV guy. Like he was all over. Like Inoki was one of those guys that was just like. And he had the look. He had that.
Much to the business.
And he had the look. He was tall. He had the hair. He had that jaw, that chiseled jaw. Like he came out looking like Elvis and a superhero all at the same time. And he was just like, there was something about him that just had an aura.
He's just legit badass, and you know someone you don't want to mess with and could kill you in the ring. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, a big loss. I knew he was such a tall guy. Eventually, he got he was in a wheelchair and he wasn't doing so well. New Japan Pro Wrestling was going to have a ceremony on October the 10th, and they were hoping to have him there, but he passed away. The company gave him an honorary title of chairman for life of New Japan. So now, regardless, even though he's passed away, it's a posthumous honor. He will be recognized as like the chairman for the existence of the company, like an honorary title. He will always, that was the way they commemorated him. On kind of a corporate level. So despite whoever the CEO or whoever owns the company down the line, he's still going to be kind of on the books there as like, this was our guy. This was like, this is the equivalent of Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan dying in Japan. This is maybe even bigger. This is like Vince McMahon dying in Japan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like he promoted wrestling. He wrestled. He was everything. So
Santo in Mexico.
Yes. Yep. So, I mean, he was there are only a few guys that I can. Not many people were bigger than Baba. I mean, Inoki, maybe Baba was up there, and then who was the other guy that got stabbed? Anyway, he was half Korean, half Japanese, and he was like the big 50 million people in Japan watched him on TV in the 50s. But anyway,
later years I'd put like Liger in there or Muda.
Right, but like Inoki was just like that was the reason he's revered so much is that literally Japanese wrestling as we know it wouldn't be where it is without him. So big loss to the community. Yeah,
definitely.
So Extreme Rules is this Saturday.
Yep.
So we got to make our picks.
Where's my phone? There it is.
And we got to break it down and talk about it.
I'm ready when you are.
Well, I mean, listen, the first ever women's ladder match for a women's championship. It's kind of a big deal.
That'll be fun.
I think that's going to be a great match. I'm going to go with Bayley. I think Bayley dethrones. I think
there's
it's time. I think
too many shenanigans that could happen.
Yeah.
Like because they're both coming out. Alexa and Asuka is going to come out Bianca, and the rest of Damage Control, Dakota and Io are going to come out with Bayley, and you just have chaos.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Bayley as well.
Yeah, I'm going with Bayley. She can't lose. Like I can't see her losing now. You know what I mean? Losing doesn't help the Damage Control storyline.
Plus, think about it. Damage Control has the tag belts. It doesn't make sense for much longer to have Bayley not have a championship.
Right, and then you can have, then it's the job of Bianca and whoever.
Then you're going to get all the trolls. Look, now they're just trying to be like the Usos and the Bloodline, and you're going to hear all that bullshit.
The problem is everybody's like, we need to get away from belt collecting and belt unifications and all that shit. Like in the last few years, everybody's been doing it. Omega has a bunch of belts. FTR has a bunch of belts. The Samoans have all the belts. This one has all the belts. It's like I understand you're setting a hierarchy, but it should be spread out where each champion should kind of represent maybe a different demographic
faction,
something to, you know what I mean? Yeah, a different faction within the overall
Group.
Yeah, so you get it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I get it.
Bailey for the W in the ladder match for sure for me.
All right, Ryan, what's next? Eric, did you make your pick?
Yeah, you said Bailey.
Yeah,
all right.
you want Bailey. Liv
So
Morgan versus Ronda Rousey, Extreme Rules for the SmackDown title.
I got to go with Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Ronda.
I'm only like my only asterisk is, as I've said the last couple weeks, is if like we've talked about, they want to go with Shayna turning on Ronda and doing a feud with Ronda, or somebody else makes a debut or decides to come out and insert themselves and interferes and costs Ronda the match,
Yeah,
so
but
that
see,
Liv can go one way and Ronda can go another way,
Yeah.
and then eventually come back to it. You know
But
what I mean?
here's my thing: I would much rather Ronda win. Shayna comes out to celebrate with Ronda, turns on her, so that way the feud's for the title. And then ultimately, whether it's 2 or 3 big matches, in the end, I want Shayna Baszler to walk out as champion.
Yeah, or have her win the Rumble and win it at Mania. You know.
Yeah, I think that match has that whole buildup, if they do it right, has a potential to be big money too.
There's so much history there. They know each other. You know what I mean? Like,
but they need to be like subtle about it, though. I want them to kind of be. I almost want it to be like, remember in ECW when Heyman decided to have Taz and Sabu not like touch each other for like a fucking year. I'm not saying a year. I'm saying a couple of months, but just have subtle little hints.
But you know what? They've already been kind of doing subtle little hints.
Yeah,
like,
they
if you remember, like Shane Rousey said something to Baszler, like, I thought you were a killer, or like, right, and just kind of poking her and shit like that. So they kind of have already started doing some of those subtle things.
We'll see where this goes. Yeah, for sure, man.
We
what's
seem
the next?
to think that both women's titles are changing hands.
I would think so.
I think so.
Good chance. All right, next match: Matt Riddle versus Seth freaking Rollins in a fight pit match
with special guest referee, former UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier.
It's gotta be Riddle.
I hope so. But do you remember the YouTube video of Daniel Cormier sitting in the crowd of WrestleMania in California several years ago, where the greatest heist that was ever pulled was pulled off, and he's sitting there in a very expensive Seth Rollins t-shirt, Seth Rollins jacket, carrying a replica briefcase, and Daniel Cormier is freaking out over Seth Rollins winning the title. So they've kind of teased that, where maybe DC is in his corner. Yep, yeah, I mean, it's right around then. Yeah, so I mean, Seth could be bros with Daniel Cormier. He's kind of teased it. But also Riddle as Tara picks in the comments here. And if you have a comment that you want to make your pick, please, we'll put it up on the big screen. Riddle, it being an MMA style match, Riddle being a former MMA fighter, Cormier being a former MMA fighter, both having worked in the UFC, both know each other. I'm leaning towards Riddle, but there's this lingering Seth Rollins
but you know what? That's what makes it great, because you think you know, but you don't really know, and it's going to make it interesting. You also have to mention too, Riddle's also been in one of these matches already, where Rollins has never been in a pit match.
Yeah, but he lost to Thatcher, right? Didn't Thatcher beat Riddle, or did Riddle beat Thatcher in that fight?
I don't remember.
Or was it Ciampa? Thatcher, whatever.
It does remind you of like the whole, the Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock,
the Lion's Den.
So before Daniel Cormier was announced, Ken Shamrock went on Twitter and tagged WWE and Triple H's account and said, "I will come back to be the referee for this match if you call it a Lion's Den match." And then literally the next night, they announced Daniel Cormier, and there's like, I don't know if this is true. There's scuttlebutt online that Triple H does not like Ken Shamrock from stuff that happened back in the 90s. So there's like a 0.0 chance that Ken Shamrock would be back in WWE, which I think is kind of shitty if that's the case. Because why wouldn't you bring back an Intercontinental Champion, a UFC fighter that everybody knows, a UFC champion? He's a Hall of Famer everywhere he's gone. You know what I mean? It's just shitty that like you can have these little personal digs, and it's like, that's not going to work for me, brother. We're not going to bring back Ken Shamrock.
And
Well, not for nothing, too, though. Shamrock's also saying, listen, I'll come and do you a favor, but you have to change the name of the match for me. Like,
yeah, but it would make more sense if it was a Lions Den. I think he was kind of tongue-in-cheek about it, about the name change, but
yeah, but, Triple H is probably sitting there reading this and is like,
well, the
fuck
fight
this guy.
pit is one of those trademark, registered, copywritten
Right.
things they want to use for sure.
Right.
Past with Brock Lesnar.
Yes. There was after one of Cormier's fights, Brock Lesnar got in the ring at a UFC event and legitimately broke a camera, like the lens of a camera, and then got in his face, and there was all this stuff.
The reason I bring that up is because Brock is rumored to be part of possibly Crown Jewel,
Oh, are we setting up for DC versus Brock Lesnar?
Not necessarily. I'm just putting it out there.
Actually, I've been hearing rumors that could be the match at Crown Jewel.
Because Cain Velasquez did it. He came in for his paycheck.
Right, that's true.
But Riddle did lose the match.
Riddle did lose the
first
fight match. So maybe you know what? Maybe Riddle has to win this one to cement this as his match.
I think it's got to go to Riddle. What's the next one?
Yep.
Kind of swimming around that thing too, because he's got a thing with Rollins. So
Yeah, Lashley could get involved. I mean, this could be very interesting.
Okay, Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross in his strap match.
There's no way in hell that Kross loses.
None.
I was just
Triple
saying
H is not. Shut up, Vince. Triple H is not going to fuck this one up.
You hope.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Vince. I saw it in your face.
I agree with you 100%.
Oh, okay.
There's no way in hell that Kross should lose. And if Kross,
if Kross loses, he's done. Right. You might as well put him back in NXT.
Yeah,
that was the biggest problem with the way they booked Bray Wyatt. They had him lose a lot more than he should have.
Remember that WrestleMania where he lost to John Cena? Like, what the fuck was that about?
I remember passing win-loss record. It was abysmal.
And his WrestleMania record's terrible.
That's what I like about AEW, because they make wins and losses matter.
Yeah, it's definitely more than the WWE focuses on. This was asked a few minutes ago, like several minutes ago. Did Mustafa Ali change his mind for leaving WWE? I think he did, because he's on TV now.
Yeah.
I think he realized he was in the middle of like a 2 or 3 year long. He was going to set out his They weren't going to release him, so he was just going to have to sit at home for 2 or 3 years. And I think he figured it was better to be on TV and do something than just sit home. So yeah, I think he's just back now.
And he put on a good show too.
Yeah, he's good. Like the Kevin Owens thing, where Owens got this new contract and shit. And do you think that something in Owens' contract involved a main event on the WrestleMania Night 1 against Stone Cold? Like, this
anybody who's negotiating a contract with WWE should have a stipulation that, hey, if you're signing me, I'm guaranteed a world title. I'm guaranteed a WrestleMania match. Like, you think Cody was going to come back and they're like, oh, you're going to debut at Extreme Rules against, James Ellsworth. He's like, no, I'm coming back at WrestleMania wrestling Seth Rollins. That's why he came back. You know what I mean? You got to have that shit in there. If you don't, you're a
definitely.
What's next?
All right. Edge versus Finn Balor in a I Quit match.
I think Finn Balor's going to win.
I was just going to say, I think you have to go with Finn Balor, but
you have to.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Finn Balor.
Only because I'm looking at who's out there, because Judgment Day is going to be with Edge, which means that Rey Mysterio Judgment Day is going to be out there with Finn, which means Rey is probably going to come out or either to interfere or whatever, or to be there to support Edge, and maybe an AJ Styles is going to be there. I'm thinking they do the old Ric Flair, Mick Foley I Quit match spot, where like the Judgment Day and Dominic have Rey Mysterio set up for a concerto, and they're going to murder him and all this other shit, and Edge quits to save his friend rather than save himself. It's kind of where I see it going, because I don't see Edge getting put in a submission hold and saying I quit. He's going to quit for.
It's not going to be Flair Funk, and it's not going to be Magnum Tully.
My eye, Lawler, my eye. Oh,
what if they do the I Quit Rock Foley, where they do an audio recording?
See, that's what I think about when unfortunately,
I know they could do that. Remember, they did that with, was it Miz and Cena or Orton Cena and one of them had the cell phone recording of John Cena saying "I quit," so they restarted the match.
Yeah, I think it was Orton Cena.
Yeah, so I think Edge is gonna quit. Maybe or maybe like Beth Phoenix. Maybe Rhea Ripley's gonna like try and
Ooh.
hurt Beth Phoenix.
Concerto on
See?
Beth.
Tara agrees. Yeah, Concerto or like Rhea's gonna like power bomb Beth Phoenix off the stage or something, and they're like, no, I quit, something like that. Sorry to spoil the show if this actually happens, guys. I'm just guessing. These are just guesses.
Good guesses though.
Right.
Fun guesses. All right, what else we got?
Brawling Brutes versus Imperium.
I'm going with Imperium.
Yeah, I feel like Imperium has to win.
It's gonna be a great match regardless.
Sheamus is already over. Who gives a shit about Rich Holland? And then Butch, whatever. Like, I wish maybe Butch goes back to Pete Dunne.
Go and beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, maybe this. You know what? Here we go. Here's a fun one. The Brawling Brutes are going to lose to Imperium because Butch is going to turn back into Pete Dunne and attack them. He said, "I'm not Butch. I'm the Bruiserweight."
I don't know.
It's a possibility.
Throwing it out there, but I think Imperium has to.
Like,
it's another thing about momentum. Imperium has to win to cement their momentum, and then eventually the good guys can win and knock them down and whatever. But I think Imperium has to. They gotta get more momentum.
What's next?
That was it.
That was it.
There's no world title. We acknowledge that there's no world title match.
Wow, you're right. That's crazy.
No tag team title match.
Wow.
If you guys
maybe they'll add more by Friday.
I
mean, it's possible. They definitely can add. Like right now, I don't even think you have enough matches to hold one during the pre-show.
Yeah.
We're at 6. Yeah,
6.
They'll add something. You know what I think they're going to wind up adding? Beth Phoenix versus Rhea Ripley.
Ooh.
I think that
would
match
have already
is going
done
to wind
that.
up happening.
They're on Raw. Wouldn't they have done that on Raw?
No, save it for the pay-per-view. Impromptu. You know what I mean? Like,
good.
Fucking get a ref out here and let's fucking have a match. You know what I mean?
Fair.
She's still got to be sour after Rhea Ripley touched Edge's balls. You know. So.
What if you spin it out of the I Quit match?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's why I think maybe, like I said, we were talking about that. Maybe Beth gets involved, and then that. I think eventually we're getting this Beth Phoenix Rhea Ripley match. We have to, and it would be a good match because I think Beth retired way early, so she can probably still go, and then Rhea is real good. So,
I agree.
If you guys have 2 seconds, I just wanted to read this tentative Survivor Series card that I created. Now, it's pretty much well known that it's going to be the Bloodline versus whoever, and that's going to be the men's War Games, right?
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And then the other War Games match would probably be the women. Now, for me, based on storyline progression and the way things are going, I put together like 5-on-5 regular Survivor Series matches as well as those. So, like, I don't know who to put against the Bloodline yet, but based on what's going on, I got Drew, Braun Strowman, Owens, Gargano, and Dexter Lumis against Karrion Kross, Theory, Gable, Otis, and The Miz, right? It all makes sense, interwoven storylines, right?
Yeah.
I got AJ Styles, Edge, Ray, Riddle, and Lashley against Judgment Day. Well, the 3 male members, Seth Rollins and I guess Mustafa Ali because of what happened yesterday. I got Brawling Brutes and the New Day against Imperium and the Viking Raiders. And my women's War Games is Bianca, Asuka, Alexa, Shotzi, and Raquel against what the hell is Bailey's group?
Damage Control.
Damage Control. All 3 of those, and then Shayna and Sonya. Now, I didn't put Ronda or Liv in there because I feel like we're pretty much in contention that Ronda's going to take the belt at Extreme Rules, and Ronda can, easily, sit that one out unless they put her on Bailey's team and replace Sonya with her. But either way, and then as far as the Bloodline, I got any number of people including unfortunately Logan Paul.
Could
they're
be,
still
man.
going through storyline shit, especially with Crown Jewel coming up. The rumors of Brock and/or Goldberg, or both.
Mm-hmm.
I got Nakamura, Street Profits, and Ricochet and Moss. So there's a bunch of guys, random guys that you could throw in there. So that's my Survivor Series.
I like that. Good experiment.
If Ray comes out at Extreme Rules to throw a wrench in the whole thing, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, if Bray comes in, he does kind of mess up all your plans, but you know.
And do you want to do Bray and whoever versus the Bloodline? Like, do you want to rush that?
Yeah, I don't know, because then it would almost be like if they did bring back a Wyatt family, then that would make sense, the Bloodline versus the Wyatts, but you would need more time to build that up.
What if you
Having a hard time hearing you there, Eric.
Yeah.
Do you have is your mic covered with something?
It might have been.
There you go. We can hear you now.
that much better?
But anyway, yeah. Ryan, you had a thought?
What if you form a wide family? What if they interrupt the War Games?
Oh yeah.
They
Like they go to black.
They could have the kid come back out of the lantern.
Well, kind
the
of
ghost.
Remember the Shield 10 years ago when they debuted in that triple threat match involving what was it, Punk, Cena, and Ryback, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then the Shield come out and wreck shit up. So that's not a bad idea.
You could do a supernatural entrance, cut to black, and come back to light, and they're all in the ring.
Yeah, lights go out, lights come back, and they're in the. How did they get in the cage? Yeah.
Yep.
Because War Games, if it's a real Survivor Series War Games, that means there has to be a cage. And honestly, sorry guys, there has to be a fucking roof on it. NXT did half a War Games. Without a roof, it ain't a War Games. Figure this shit out.
Yeah, they only did that, I think, for some high spots, but
that was that was why they did it. And now AEW, when they do Blood and Guts, they have the big. You can go on top of the cage and everything. So I like that. So hopefully they'll do a similar thing.
I mean, I'll never forget Sid powerbombing Brian Pillman, and Pillman's head got the top of the fucking roof of the cage.
Yeah, right. Who thought it was that cage was way too small.
Was brutal.
Was that the one where somebody took the turnbuckle, that big metal piece of the turnbuckle, like the hook, and was it Arn Anderson hit somebody? They were fucking bleeding. Oh, that was the Dangerous Alliance against the Horsemen.
Anything is better than Abdullah the Butcher in the fucking electric.
Oh, the House of Horrors match or whatever it was. Yeah.
Right.
We can all forget. Yeah, the world will forget that.
Or
except around Halloween.
The White Castle of Fear match.
Or Vince Russo's War Games.
Oh God.
Russo's Revenge.
Yep.
In the triple
I was gonna
cage.
get there.
In the triple fucking cage. And it ended with Goldberg spearing him.
The belt?
Yes. Goldberg speared Russo through the side of the cage, so he escaped the cage before Kevin Nash. So Russo won the title.
Right. So they redid the whole Austin McMahon with Big Show interfering.
Right. 2 years or 3 years later to lesser effect. Yeah.
Much lesser.
Yeah, Vince Russo's no Vince McMahon.
He thought he was. He really thought he was.
I think thought he was better than Vince.
Bro,
what you don't understand is,
and then it's funny too. The whole the big difference too is especially based on storyline with Austin and McMahon. You can kind of somewhat see legitimately Vince as champion for at least for a couple days or whatever,
Right.
Whereas Russo, not so much.
No, he wasn't in shape. He wasn't no, didn't work. Yeah. Sorry, Vin.
He was wearing fucking New York Giants gear.
Didn't he wear a helmet one of those times?
He did wear a helmet, yeah.
They love doing that. They would put they'd put Ralphus in full catcher's gear. They put Norman Smiley in full football gear in Buffalo once, I think. They were just doing silly shit towards the end of WCW. But there was also a rumor earlier today. There was a thing. Oh, WWE hires a new long-term continuity creative director. And all the comments are like, bro, guess who's coming back, bro? And we're like, no, not gonna be Vince Russo. No.
He's the opposite of continuity.
Yo, for real. That guy was he had the memory of a goldfish when it came to storylines.
You know what's interesting? Russo, for all the shit he says about like not wanting to be involved in wrestling and this and that, he sure has a lot of shit to talk about. Wrestling.
He's still got a podcast and a Patreon and everything else, and all he talks about is wrestling. You can
Yeah,
talk about the Mets. You can talk about anything, bro. You talk about wrestling 24/7.
He
But at
said
least
that he's going to stop watching wrestling, stop watching it, stop watching it.
Cornette does the same thing, but at least Cornette is a fan of wrestling still.
Yeah,
Cornette's doing the exact same because he knows. Cornette knows that he can go on. He can go, oh, you goddamn Young Bucks and Pockets and fucking Harpo Marks over there. You motherfuckers don't know how to work. And then he's gonna have a whole bunch of people go, yeah, man, you're right. Like he knows he can get views just being that guy. None of it. It's a work, folks. None of this is legit. I don't think he hates any of. The only person I know for sure that Jim Cornette hates is Vince Russo.
Yeah.
Past that,
yeah, he does refer to him as shit stain.
he sells or sold a T-shirt of a drawing of Jim Cornette pissing on the grave of Vince Russo.
It could be a work still,
bro.
They're all workers.
Yeah, that was like when you would sell a T-shirt like back in the old territory days. It would be like Dusty sucks eggs, and like somebody would go sell it, and it would be one wrestler would sell them, but you'd be splitting it with Dusty. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
The heel would sell an anti-babyface, or babyface would sell an anti-heel T-shirt, and then they'd split the money.
Or like Owen. Remember he came out with the Owen 316. I just broke your neck shirts.
Yes.
Which was obviously it was a spinoff of the Austin 316. But if you go way back, I'm talking like late 70s, early 80s, when Greg the Hammer Valentine broke Wahoo McDaniel's leg. Before there was Owen 316, I just broke your neck. There was I broke Wahoo's leg.
Right on the T-shirt, that blue T-shirt with the white bubble letters, the 1970s iron-on letters. Love it. We're towards the top of the hour now, guys. We should probably head out. As you may have noticed, it was probably weird for you if you're listening to the audio only, but during the video stream, you would have seen Steve drop out. So Steve had to go. Eric, I think, was just in the car.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Eric's in the car. Yeah. So Steve dropped out. He had to take off. He's got a family and all that. So we'll close out for tonight. We went through all the matches for Extreme Rules. You've got a NXT coming up tonight at 8:00, supposedly with a redesign of the set and the colors and all that. So that'll be interesting. Wednesday night, you've got Dynamite. Friday night, you got SmackDown and Rampage, and we'll do it all again next week. So we'll be back Tuesday, 6 p.m. on Eastern time. Oh, and there's going to be a AEW Dynamite that's going to be a special Tuesday night Dynamite. I forget which week it might be. I don't know if it's next week or the week after. But there's going to be a Tuesday night Dynamite that's going to happen basically right after our show. It's either coming on at 7 or 8 p.m. So we'll be able to tell people, hey, we're going to talk about a little bit during our show, and then you can go right into watching Dynamite right after. So, 6 p.m. Eastern time right here on YouTube and Twitter/Periscope. And we're on Steve's LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitch. So most of our social media is at TagMeADate. That's at TagMeADate, no spaces. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope. Everywhere is at TagMeADate pretty much. Twitch is different. Twitch.tv/War Report. That's all one word. WARREPORT. Whether it's the YouTube or the Periscope or Twitter, or whether it's the Twitch channel, you can add us to your favorites or hit subscribe. If you're on Twitch, it's adding as a favorite. If it's YouTube, you hit subscribe and then you hit the bell to get notifications. If we go live or upload videos. And if you prefer an audio version instead of the video version of the podcast, you can search for Tag Me a Date or the War Report in your favorite podcast app of choice, such as Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Podcasts. And you just type it in, and you'll find the page and hit subscribe. And the audio version will be downloaded directly to your mobile device within about an hour of the show going off the air. So if you want to take it with you in the car, or while you're doing laundry or whatever else it is, you go to the gym and you want to put on podcasts, you don't have to watch the audio version. You subscribe to or you don't have to watch the video version. You subscribe to the audio version. And when you search for Tag Me a Date on the podcast apps, with a War Report rather, there are two wrestling podcasts called the War Report. just take a look at the icon and take a look at the description. The graphic itself will say Tag Me a Date on it. The description will mention Steve or Vince or any of the regular cast of characters. And the other one will not mention us. So don't subscribe. I mean, you can subscribe them you want. I would prefer you didn't. And subscribe to us instead. We've been doing a lot longer. And if you have any friends that you think would enjoy our podcast, please pass it along, share our social medias, or share the podcast links. And if you're live with us, like Tara was this week, sometimes we have Kevin, sometimes we got my friend Flash, sometimes Tara's in here, sometimes when Kat's in here, her husband is popping in the comments, or we got a whole lot of things going on in the comments if you want to come over. So watch our live streams, throw us some questions in the comments. We'll put you up on the screen. We'll answer your question. We'll have a good time. So we'll do it all again next week, Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time for another edition of the War Report. I appreciate everybody that's listening, and I hope you have a nice rest of your week. Take care.